Vampire the Masquerade Rivals, an expandable card game for 2 to 4 players. Each player will control an iconic clan from the classic role-playing games Vampire the Masquerade. This really is one of the most revered role-playing games in history. It has been, as far as I know, going strong since the 1990s. And now you can play it in the form of, again, expandable card game. In this basic set, you will get 4 clans, each with a pre-made deck, and also you get a couple of extra cards that you can use to customize your decks. So again, you can play it out of the box with pre-made decks, or start messing with the cards and make your own decks as soon as you want, really. And this is the insert inside the box. This section of the box will be used to store the four parties, the 4 clans that come with the basic game, and then you have room for tokens and extra cards. And there you have room for expansions. I already placed the cards from several expansions there. So each player will control a party, a clan. Here, for example, I have the Bruja, which are the brawlers. And then we have another clan, which is more the schemers, another clan that engages in conspiracies, and then we have the Toreadores, which are the social butterflies. They like to get out of retainers. Each clan has a unique agenda, which is a specific way of scoring points, and again, that will definitely drive gameplay, because that's the easiest way for you to score points. Each clan also has a rival, meaning that even if you're playing with more than 2 people, there is another clan that you specifically are targeting for destruction. If you knock out an enemy clan, meaning you destroy all of their vampires, then if that was your rival, then the game ends immediately and you win the game. Otherwise, if you knock out somebody who was not your rival, the game is still over, but at that point the winner is the player who scores the most points. And again, the biggest way of scoring points is by fulfilling the conditions of your agenda. These are the tokens, or by capturing people in the city. You will see how that works. Also, if you score 13 agenda points from those actions, that also ends the game, and with 13 points you win the game immediately. You will have, again, an agenda. You will have a haven, which is where you hide your vampires when they're not in the streets hunting and being hunted also. And there is an ability that is printed on your haven, and it counts as if it was printed on the card of your leader. The leader is the vampire from your vampire deck with the highest blood potency, and blood potency is the number indicated there. And vampires have, again, the blood potency, which is both the cost to hide them. You'll need to spend 5 prestige/blood tokens. These are double-sided tokens with blood on one side and prestige on the other. So right there, if I spend that much prestige, turn into blood, I was able to recruit the Cossack. Then they have 3 types of attacks: melee, social, and mental. They have icons, which per se don't do anything, but they may trigger certain effects, and then they may have special abilities indicated here. When a vampire takes enough damage that the blood goes down to 0, the vampire goes into torpor, which is you place in a special area. They will slowly mend. They will get at least 1 blood each turn. Then you can discard cards to mend them faster. And when they are back to their potency, then you can put them back in the game. You start the game with only 1 vampire, who is your leader, and then you will have a hand of cards, 1 from the vampire deck and 1 from the action deck. And usually you start with 4 cards. Unless you are not the first player, then you get more cards. These cards will be played to trigger different things. For example, to perform actions, in which case you play a card, you exhaust a vampire to perform the action. Somebody must do that action, and then you perform the action as indicated. Vampires will attack targets, which can be non-playing characters, can be other players' vampires. And when you perform an attack, you use the ability of the attack you're using. Declare, I'm going to use melee or social or mental attack. And then you can play cards of the corresponding attack. For example, this will boost a social attack to gain extra damage and possibly other effects. This card will enhance a mental attack, and this one will enhance a melee attack. And then, and these are basically the main cards for the Bruja, because that's what they like to do. Smoke out the enemies, attack them, inflict a coup de grace, that sort of things. Again, they are the brawlers, I told you they were. Other characters, other decks also come with different kind of actions, such as scheming, which, weirdly enough, the scheme action is phrased as a sentence. Should I gain 2 victory points? So the player who plays this card will start an influence conflict, and players can use influence, which is one of the many resources in the game, to see if this happens or not, if the final solution is yay or nay. Conspiracy is another kind of card in which you play it face down, you place a prestige blood on it, and then other players can also help you build a conspiracy. You can show it to some players, not all, and they can place their own prestige blood on it. And when it has the required number, then you resolve it, and there will be a damage that will target all the players that did not contribute to the conspiracy. Just to give an example of what these cards do. Now, another couple of things. So we have the Haven, your vampires. That suppose we got at least 2 in play. Your vampires that are next to the Haven or below the Haven, they count as being in the Haven itself, and that means that they benefit from a degree of secrecy. That means in order to be attacked, the opponent needs to produce intelligence equal to or higher than the secrecy protecting your vampires. Again, intel, secrecies, all currencies and resources you need to collect, produce, and spend. And then we have the city deck. Those poor people that go about their business without any idea of what's going on here. They have a city deck. You have a city deck, and at the beginning of each player's turn, a card is drawn. That may generate a one-time event. It is resolved, what it says, and that's it. May generate an ongoing event, in which case you place a token of the color of the player that triggered it, and it will be removed when that player's turn comes around again. So that's a reminder of they stay out for a full round for as long as until each player has taken a turn. And then we have the poor bystanders. They have an amount of damage that they can take. If you produce that amount of damage, you gain an advantage, which can be to score victory points, for example. And then you can also choose to attach them as retainers. If you choose to attach a bystander as a retainer, then you take the card and you place it under the retainer, and then you gain the benefit indicated in the attach. So for example, having a tourist guide increases my social attack power by 1. Ooh, Bruno would really like the help of the tourist guide. You can also choose to burn it instead, and which is what you probably imagine vampires do to a lot of people. You bleed them dry, and then you recover blood that you may have lost. And then we have the SAD. Oh, they are SAD. Special Affair Division, SAD. They are vampire hunters. Again, you can attack them and try to destroy them. They will score you victory points. And they count as ongoing, so again, they'll be around until each player has taken a turn since they came out, and they attack people. If at the end of your turn they're still there, they attack one of your vampires, causing damage. What is interesting is that the city deck, a lot of cards, once they come out, they don't go back in there. They are burned, meaning either they are attached, they are destroyed, the events are discarded for good. But what I mean is that they don't go in the regular discard pile. These guys definitely do. So when this deck is exhausted and you shuffle it to make another one, there's going to be a lot of these guys. They come out increasingly more often as the game continues, which hastens the end of the game because it makes it more likely that somebody will die. And remember, when somebody dies, that triggers the end of the game. So it's good that there is player elimination, yes, but no one will be sitting out as the game progresses. Knocking out a vampire clan means that the game is over, and then depending on who killed whom and how, that determines the end of the game. How do you knock out a clan entirely? Each clan has a number of again, prestige slash blood tokens. So when you recruit a vampire, you have to pay the corresponding cost. Say I recruit Sweetums and I take it from there. And now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 left. If I recruit another vampire, I would have to pay that cost, and again that reduces my pool. There may be game effects that put some back in there, but not many. It's not that easy to get things back in there, as it should be, because this is what happens when a clan doesn't have any prestige slash blood tokens left in their personal pool. They lose the game. And when a vampire is knocked out, I said we place it in torpor, but then we take a blood from their pool to start the healing process. So there is a permanent cost. Even if the vampire may come back in the game when it has enough blood back, there is a cost to be taken. As for the turn, the turn is very simple, and there's a very good play rate here. You have a beginning phase in which a card is flipped is drawn in the city deck, so bringing in more events and more people and things, as I showed you earlier. Then vampires will become ready, because remember, to perform actions you have to turn them this way. You have to exhaust them. They become ready again. They can, and if they were in the streets, which is the area above their haven, they go back to the haven. And then your action phase, once you get all the basics that I showed you, the action phase is pretty simple, because players can take 2 actions. They can draw a card, they can recruit a vampire, again, play a card from your hand, a vampire card, add enough blood, and that's how you recruit a vampire. You can perform an action, which means you play a card that says action on it, and again, usually you'll need to exhaust a vampire to perform an action. Unless it's called unhosted, then unhosted actions do not take vampires to play. You can attack. Make an attack against, again, those innocent citizens. Make an attack against other vampires. And if you attack against a citizen, well, that's it. You just need to produce enough damage from any of your socials to match or exceed their life. And when you make an attack, you will, again, exhaust a vampire, indicate the type of attack that you're using, and you can also commit a face-down card to enhance the attack. If you're attacking that unknown playing characters, then the card is revealed. It's optional to play a card, reveal, total, see if you attack. Usually, you know exactly what they have. If you're attacking another player's vampire, then, well, again, you still declare that you're attacking, you still exhaust, you still potentially play a card, but the owning player also may get to play a card if they have a reaction card that applies to the kind of attack that is being performed. When you perform an attack, you total the value of the attack, and you subtract the corresponding stat of the defender. So, for example, not only does Bruno have 2 starting value when he attacks using social, but if somebody is attacking him socially, he has a protection of 2, so you reduce the damage dealt. So in this case, for example, our friend Hydra here is dealing an attack of 3 just using these things, plus we have other things here. But let's just say the attack is actually 4, because there's an extra +1 for each of those symbols. So there will be 4, and there is no defense, so Bruno takes 4 points of damage. It's pretty simple, really. Party means that from time to time you can put vampires together. You may want to put vampires together. They form a party. Something that confuses new players. You don't add their strength or their attack together. All it does is they share the icons and the abilities, and that allows you from time to time to trigger specific effects. And this is how you play Vampire the Masquerade Rivals. I think there is a good game in here. I love the art, I love the theme, and I enjoyed it overall. It is just that there are some elements of the game that I think hold it back, at least for me and my friends. When I was playing it with 4 players, I thought, man, this is a this feels like a two-player game. I think it would work better that way. And then when I was playing with two players, I thought, man, this needs more players. So we'll see why that may be the case. First, the game has a steep learning curve, no doubt about it. The general idea is pretty simple, but there are just a lot of small procedure, little details, prestige, and influence. People keep mixing up those two terms, which is pretty normal. They don't feel all that difference in a sense. And secrecy and range attacks works a little bit differently, and reactions work differently unless you do this and do that, but there is damaging reaction, which has its own little things. Schemes and conspiracies, which are really what you need 3 or 4 players for. Some of those effects don't make any sense with 2 players. But they're basically their own mini game. And once you started teaching the game to somebody and you go through all the procedures and they say, wait a second, we have 2 mini games to cover, you can see that people are pretty tired already. And the first game you can expect to be pretty slow. Even then, the game just takes a while because you have 4 players and you have an element of randomness, and sure, people can play can plan their turn in advance, and some of those parties can do that better than others, and some may say, hey, do you want to help me with this, help me with that, but you do not have a lot of interaction during other players' turns unless from time to time, hey, play a card to defend yourself or to do so, or to perform some other effects. You show me a card and I put a token on it. But that doesn't happen all the time. So a lot of that is simply downtime. It's simply you're waiting for 3 other players to take their turn, and they're struggling to remember how secrecy works, how that unique card works, and once they know it, now they're thinking, how can I use it? So the learning curve is steep, and with players that are not familiar, then the game just moves slowly. And that is when I had the feeling, man, this would work very well with 2 players because... by the way, those conspiracies and schemes that are the ones that really require 3-4 people, those are the ones that to me feel unnecessary. I feel like, well, I think I could just enjoy a game of hunting and abstracting the diplomacy, abstracting into social attacks, into mental attacks. Those I think would be good enough for me. Then playing with 2 players, it turns out that at least with the 4 pre-made decks, it's easy that those are not balanced, that one will just slaughter the other. Even the rules explain that there's specifically 2 clans, the Bruja and the Toreadors, that really work with 2 players. So if you're gonna play with that number of players, then you have a whole set with only 2 parties that are fully functional in that sense. I wish that our core set had 4 parties that would work well depending on the number of players, and so you had a little more variety, but you're probably gonna feel the need to start expanding the game pretty soon. And I said that the learning curve is steep. Unfortunately, that is not made better by the rulebook, which has these like large blocks of text, and very often there is like important information which is buried somewhere in there. When you have so much information, I think it should have been visually punctuated a lot more with boxes, with highlighted things, with reminders. How to generate intelligence, for example, that's something we struggled the first game, and we kept going through the manual. No one could find it. It was during the second game that somebody was able to find that element there. So, this being said, I enjoy sending out my Toreadors to hunt down innocent passerbys and get them as retainers. I enjoy playing as the Bruja, just attacking everybody. Those are the fun parties. I guess I'm just a 2P kind of player. But again, I can recommend this one. It's a fun game if you want to put in the effort, if you're playing a 2-player with those 2. I have more mixed feelings about in 3 or 4 players, not just because it takes longer and it has more downtime, but because the mechanics specifically are for that number of players are not as interesting to me, conspiracies and schemes. That is my assessment of the gameplay with the pre-constructed decks. And mind you, I love expandable games that come with pre-constructed decks. That's how I play Pokemon. My daughter Avery and I, we have a sizable stack of pre-made Pokemon decks, and we play fairly often. We just grab a deck and play it. We're invested enough in the game that we want to play it. We don't want to get into all the meta of creating those decks. And so I don't feel that I want to do that. Maybe actually with some of the expansions, I'll try those expansions and I play them again as they are. But in this video, I'm reviewing the core, so I'm telling you what you find in here, what you can do with that. But I don't think I want to get into all the meta, starting building decks from scratch and meeting other opponents and see where that goes. Also, because when you build decks, you can build decks as small as 40 cards. And I think somebody who puts a lot of work in it, they can really put in place some semi-algorithms there. They can really get so much control of the cards that I'm afraid it gets to those situations where I show you my deck, you show me mine. Good game, that was fun, you win. Where the meta may take control of things. So, this is my assessment of Vampire the Masquerade. I like it as 2P especially, but you're not gonna get all of replay value with the materials that you find in the core set. I'm less enthusiastic about the 3 and 4 players, but that may just be me and my group. If you want to start getting to the meta, I think that you can have fun mixing and matching and messing with the cards that you find in here in the expansions. That just happens to be not my favorite mode of play when it comes to card games. And this is my assessment of Vampire the Masquerade Rivals.